sarvaśaḥ namo namaha. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatera Vanachari Yamunatera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradha Hari Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatera Vanachari Yamunatera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Kunj Bihari Radha Kunj Bihari Radhe Jaya Radha Raspi Hare Radha Raspi Hare Radhe Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe Jaya Radha Ramana Radha Ramana Radhe Jaya Radha Giridhari Radha Giridhari Radhe Jaya Radha Madana Mohan Radha Madana Mohan Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Gopinata Radha Gopinata Radhe Jaya Radha Sham Sundar Radha Sham Sundar Radhe Jaya Radhe Sham Radhe Sham Radhe Sham Jaya Radhe Sham Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Nitai Gaura Haribol 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol Jaya 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 Prabhupada. Gurudev, Gurudev. Paramahamsa Prabhupada Sota. Vrinda ki Jai Shri Rup Shri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sar Goswami Prabhu ki Prem Se Ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivajari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopal Gopi Gopinath Cham Kund Radha Kundagiri Govardhana ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shri Mathura Dham ki Shri Mayapur Dham ki Shri Jagannathpuri Dham ki Tulsi Maharani Bhakti Devi ki Ganga Yamuna Devi ki Hari Nam Sankirtan Yagya ki Shri Shri Gonitai ki Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki Shri Shri Radha Sham Sundar ki Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki all glories to the Asabhalotis, all glories to the Asabhalotis, all glories to Shigura and Shiguranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Reading from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, 13th chapter, text number 30. इसमें उल्लेख किया ना है स्क्रीन हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी स्क्रीन में नहीं है आ रहा है So text number 30, 13th chapter prakṛtyaiva ca karmāṇi kriyamāṇāni sarvaśaḥ ya paśyati tathātmānam akartāraṁ paśyati prakṛtyaiva ca karmāṇi kriyamāṇāni sarvaśaḥ ya paśyati tathātmānam akartāraṁ paśyati prakṛtyaiva ca karmāṇi kriyamāṇāni sarvaśaḥ ya paśyati tathātmānam akartāraṁ paśyati Matajis, prakṛtyā by material nature eva, certainly, cha, also, karmāṇi, activities, kriyamāṇāni, being performed, sarvaśaḥ, in all respects, ya, anyone who, paśyati, sees, tathā, also, ātmānam, himself, akartāraṁ, the nondoer, sa, he, paśyati, sees perfectly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. Purport. This body is made by material nature under the direction of the Supersoul. And whatever activities are going on in respect to one's body are not his doing. Whatever one is supposed to do, either for happiness or for distress, one is forced to do because of the bodily constitution. The self, however, is outside all these bodily activities. This body is given according to one's past desires. To fulfill desires, one is given the body with which he acts accordingly. Practically speaking, the body is a machine designated by the Supreme Lord to fulfill desires. Because of desires, one is put into difficult circumstances to suffer or to enjoy. This transcendental vision of the living entity, when developed, makes one separate from bodily activities. One who has such a vision is an actual seer. Om ajnanatimirandasya jnananjana salakaya chakasudannamiritam yanam tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Yadabada Kamalan Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sirupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vijagan Vidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopikaganta Radha Kanta Namastude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshari Brijavano Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivajari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare prakṛtyaiva ca karmāṇi kriyamāṇāni sarvaśaḥ ya paśyati tathātmānam akartāraṁ paśyati. One who can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, and sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. So in this chapter, there's an explanation of the nature and this material body, kshetra and kshetrajña, the knower of this body. So there are two knowers of the body, that is also explained. So one is the individual living being, situated in each body, and then one is the Supersoul, Paramatma. So, Paramatma is trying to help the conditioned soul to advance in spiritual understanding. So one who has attained the human form of life, by the Lord's mercy, he is able to understand about this material world, about this material body. And he has a consciousness, he has the intelligence to understand that ultimately we are different from this material body, from the gross body and the subtle body. And Krishna himself, as a super soul, situated in everyone's heart, is trying to help, is trying to guide the conditioned soul so they can advance further in this life, in spiritual understanding. At the same time, even in this world, one has to act in order to maintain the body also. For that purpose, Vana Ashram has been given by the Supreme Lord himself, as Krishna is saying in the 4th chapter, Chato Vanam Maya Shrishtam Gunakama Vibhagashaha. So the activities are there in this world for the embodied being in the human form of life. Either one is engaged in Brahminical activities, like worshipping the deities, performing yagyas, and then studying the scriptures and teaching the scriptures. So these are the activities of the Brahmanas, with Krishna in the center. And then the Kshatriyas are there, so the governing body of any state. So for example, the president of a state, or then he has his ministers, and are seeing that there is law and order in the state, or in the country, or in the district, or even in the village. So usually, traditionally in India, there's a panchayat, there's a assembly of the senior men of the community, and they will see that everything is going on nicely. So these are the Kshatriyas, and so they are managing the affairs, but then they are also protecting the citizens. And then the Vaishyas, those who are taking care of the cows, the land, agriculture, so that we have milk, so that we have grains and fruits and vegetables. And then those who are skilled with the hand, for example, making furniture with wood, or of course the barber or the washerman. So these are there to help the upper classes in regards to their services. And there is a harmony, just like we have the material body, so the head is there and the brain is there, which is required with the intelligence so that we can function properly. And then the arms are there to work and do something and to protect oneself and others. And the belly is there to digest the food. And the legs are there so we can walk here and there. So all of them are required. Similarly, in the social body or in any village or state or country, there's a need of the intelligent class of people who can guide the others. And then those who are protecting and seeing for the law and order, and those who are supplying foodstuffs, so these are all required. But Krishna has to be in the center, that is important. Otherwise, shrameva hi kevalam. Otherwise, it is useless waste of labor. So everything has to be done, Hari Toshanam, for the pleasure of Hari or Krishna. And then we are successful. So everyone has to have some occupation in this world, so one can maintain oneself and one's family members. And then for that purpose, so the 4 ashrams are there. First a brahmachari, the one who is studying or going to school, being celibate. Those who are more advanced, they will be sent to the Gurukul under the guidance of the spiritual master. And others, they may be sent to different schools in order to become kshatriyas or in order to take care of the business. So that was previously the system, and Prabhupada wanted to establish Vana ashram. And so Gurukul was there, and then he said after a few years, then there should be Vana ashram college, so one can be trained properly. And the ladies, they may also learn a little bit, of course, how to read and write. That is necessary also for ladies, but then afterwards, ladies supposed to be at home, and they learn how to cook and how to sew and take care of family. So that was the tradition. So brahmachari, and then those who are not able to be always with the spiritual master, which is the minority, so they will get married. And then be in the grihastha ashram. And then later on, after some time, one should give up all one's activities of this world, external activities, and then go to the forest, vanaprasthan, going to the forest and perform austerity for the pleasure of the Lord and be fully engaged in spiritual activities. Chanting the holy names in our case, and then being absorbed in studying the scriptures. And that is the main activity then of those in Vanaprast. Because in household life, one has so many obligations, so many duties, one may not be always able to be absorbed in hearing and chanting about the Lord. But at one point then, towards the end of one's life, one has to try to be focused. So one may attain perfection, or one may advance further in spiritual understanding and be prepared for the next life. So that one may then attain perfection, if not in this life, then in the next lifetime. And those who are highly advanced, they will be sannyasis. And they are the spiritual masters of the others. And so they are fully absorbed and highly advanced. So everyone has to be engaged in performing some activity. It is also mentioned in the scriptures in Bhagavad-Gita. Krishna also says, if we are not working, we cannot even maintain our body. So that is required. One has to work. Some occupation should be there. But then we should have the knowledge and understand ultimately that I am not this body, I am a spirit soul. And have to become free from the bodily platform, identification with this body. And should understand that whatever is happening in this world, that is due to my previous activities, karma. And then, of course, as Prabhupada is explaining, so in the purport that so one is bound to act in a certain way. Due to the modes of material nature, one is not free. One cannot do whatever one wants. At the same time, some independence is there, and one has the free will, and one can either serve Krishna and one can be independent of Krishna. But even there, if we are serving Krishna, so we are under Krishna's internal energy, still we have a little ability to think of how to serve Krishna, in which way. Similarly, when we are in this material world, although we are conditioned, we are under the stringent laws of material nature, one is bound, but still we have some ability to act in a certain way. So if one is intelligent, then one will understand that there's more than just living in this material world and just working and trying to be happy, but there's a purpose of this material human form of life. And that is one should try to be engaged in spiritual activities to realize one's real self as spirit soul. So even in conditioned state, in this material world, the embodied being in a human form of life, he can make some, he has the power or the intelligence to act in a certain way, either in a good way or a bad way. So if he's acting in a good way, that is a proper use of the intelligence, that is good intelligence. If he's trying to be in the mode of goodness, if he's trying to be nicely situated, according to Vana ashram, then is properly situated, is making the best use of his bad bargain of being in this material world, using the intelligence properly, to try to be nicely situated and ultimately to be engaged in spiritual activities. Whereas if one is under the modes of material passion and ignorance, then one will be practically compelled to act in a way which is detrimental for oneself and others. As that is also explained in Bhagavad-Gita, sometimes destructive way. So somebody, for example, if he is deciding I should drink some alcohol, so which is not good, but those who have no knowledge, not proper knowledge, they are not properly educated, then they will drink wine and beer, as it is available now also everywhere almost in India. Even in Vrindavan here, unfortunately, there are some shops where they sell wine and beer, and people who are not properly educated, they will drink. And as a result of drinking, then they become bewildered. The intelligence is not able to function properly because of the alcohol. And then one will do some things which are not good, some sinful activities, and then one will have to suffer the reaction to that. So we have a choice, even in the conditioned state, one can act in a certain way. So it is mentioned one should act in a way to elevate oneself, not to degrade oneself. That is the proper use of intelligence. And ultimately one has to surrender to Krishna. One has to be engaged in spiritual activities. And the more the better. The more we try to surrender to Krishna, to engage in spiritual activities, the more we will advance. The more we will become free from material activities. The more we can understand practically that we are different from this body. And as explained here, that if one is then engaged in spiritual activities, and then one can see the self, and one can see one's own self, a spirit soul. And then one can see that actually one is not the doer, because one is not the body. But of course one is in the body, and as explained by Prabhupada, and even in Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna is saying that this body is like a machine, like a vehicle. Just like if one has a car. So he wants to go somewhere, he wants to go to Radhakund. So he sits in the car and he can go to Radhakund. Similarly, we are in this body, and then we can walk here and there. So this ability we have, this power is there. So, but we have to be properly situated in knowledge, and then we have to know what to do and what not to do. And basically one has to act so that one may be able to elevate himself. So that is the purpose of a human form of life, to elevate oneself more and more, so that one ultimately may become perfect and realized, self-realized. That is the purpose of the human form of life. But it is not so easily attained. One has to be in good association under the guidance of a highly advanced soul, the spiritual master, a great devotee of Krishna. Then in that association, we'll be able to understand what to do and what not to do. So the spiritual master is training the disciple, or is showing the devotees what to do and what not to do. He will show the path. Vatma Pradarsha Guru. Vatma, he will show the path. And then after, if one is fortunate and takes initiation, then one comes closer to Krishna by the mercy of the spiritual master, who is a confidential servant of Krishna. And then one can make more advancement in spiritual life. So one has to constantly endeavor for perfection. Every day one has to endeavor and try to see that one can advance more and more. So periodically we should see what I'm doing, how am I doing? And then one should think, how can I advance more? And then with the help of the spiritual master, the senior devotees, then we may be able to advance slowly but surely from Shraddha to Prem. So first we must have some faith in the process of devotional service and the Supreme Lord. And then in sadhu sangha and the association with the devotees, bhajana kriya, we can engage in spiritual activities. And then anatta nivritti, all the unwanted things in the heart, they are washed away. And then one can be fixed, nishta, in the spiritual understanding. And then one is able to understand that I am different from this body. Then one can see oneself. And one can see that the body is different from me. And then now one will use the body in a positive way, in Krishna conscious activities, so that we can advance further. And then one will get the taste, ruchi, for spiritual activities, for serving the Lord, for chanting the holy names. And then it becomes more easy, it becomes natural. Just like, for example, now we don't have to take care of our breathing. Practically we are breathing automatically. That is automatic. As soon as one takes birth actually, and then the breathing will be there, it is activated. And even that is well known, if one is taking birth, a child is taking birth and sometimes they come out, that is a kind of shock, very painful situation. And then sometimes the baby is not crying and is not breathing. And the doctor is slapping the baby, whop, and the baby will cry, and then he will breathe. And then he will, and it automatically, by nature, that has not to be taught, that is automatic. One will be able to breathe. And then afterwards, when the parents are there, they're giving some guidance to the child. He will learn how to walk, slowly but surely. And then he will learn how to talk. And then slowly but surely he will grow up. And then, so he will know what to do and what not to do. And then he will go to school. And then he will learn how to read and write. And he becomes more and more knowledgeable. But then one has to get spiritual guidance from the spiritual master. And then after, one will be able to advance further and further, and if one has a taste for spiritual activities, then he can advance more quickly. And then actually it becomes natural, everything is natural. So just as explained, the breathing, it's natural. Now we don't have to take care of the breathing, we know. Even so we learn how to walk. Now it is easy. The beginning, for the small child, he cannot walk. But then he's learning with the help of the parents, and then he can walk, and then it becomes easy. Sometimes people are just walking and thinking something, or sometimes they're on the mobile and they don't have to pay much attention to the walking. It is natural. And the breathing, everything becomes natural after some time. So similarly in Krishna consciousness also, when we engage in spiritual activities, then it becomes natural. It becomes more and more easy. So with the body, when we go every day Mangalatik, the body gets used to and following a spiritual program. And then it is not so difficult. And similarly also with the mind, at the beginning is more difficult to think about Krishna, to focus on Krishna. But if we practice and if we get a taste for Krishna consciousness, ruchi, nam ruchi, seva ruchi, by purification, when the consciousness is purified, and then naturally some affection, some rati, for the Supreme Lord will be there. The natural inclination will come to serve Krishna. Because by nature, Jivera Sopoi Krishna Nityadas, we are the eternal servants of Krishna. It is natural. So when the consciousness is purified, then the natural inclination will be there to serve Krishna. And then naturally we will feel some taste. And then becomes easier. And then it becomes so much easy, then the Krishna will be there most of the time in the consciousness. And then one becomes attached to Krishna and detached from this material world. So after some times it becomes natural. So we have to try to come to that state. And then one can hope to very soon become perfect in Krishna consciousness. And that is actually the goal of life, is to become absorbed in Krishna consciousness. To be Krishna conscious, to be conscious of Krishna, that is Krishna consciousness. So that means to remember Krishna, the personal form of Krishna, Shyama Sundar, Tribang Lalit, Shyama Sundar, Sikhi Pichi Moli. So we have to practice every day. It is a cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada has explained Nectar of Devotion. We have to cultivate being Krishna conscious as much as possible, ultimately all the time. But we have to practice. It is a matter of practice. Krishna also is explained in Bhagavad-Gita. Abhyasa yogena. So we have to do abhyas, we have to practice Krishna consciousness. Right from the early morning, from getting up, we offer pranam to Guru Garanga Krishna. And then we go and take bath, and then we may chant Om Appavitra Pavitra Va Sarvavastam Karapiva Yasmare Pundarikaksam Sabhabhyantara Suchihi. So try to remember Krishna, Krishna's form, and then we chant the holy names. And so in this way, we are connected to Krishna. And then we see the deities in the temple, we chant the holy names, we know that Krishna and Krishna Nama non-different. Nama Chittamari Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purnashuddha Nidimukta Abhinatvam Nama Naminaha. Krishna, Krishna Nama non-different. In the beginning we cannot see. In the beginning the sound is there, but in purified consciousness then we can see that Krishna Nam is non-different from Krishna. So that is Shuddhanam, chanting the pure name. Then we can see Krishna. We can see Krishna's wonderful qualities, and we can see Krishna's associates, because Krishna is never alone. We can see Krishna's pastimes. So we have to practice. So therefore we should have a strong morning program so we can be absorbed, and then we can engage in our activities, whatever it may be, during the day according to Vana and Ashram, and we can be somewhat connected to Krishna if we have a strong morning program. And then evening time also again, so especially those who are working and then have to meet materialistic persons, so then sometimes one is not able to focus completely. But even there one has to practice. Even Krishna was asking, so Arjuna was asking Krishna, so how am I supposed to remember you when I'm fighting? I have to concentrate. And then Krishna says, yes, you concentrate on the fighting, but you try to remember me and then you fight. So similarly, we have to perform our different activities, but we have to try to remember Krishna. But it is not easy, but we have to try. Then Krishna will help also. And the more one is advanced, the more easier it becomes. But unless and until one is self-realized, difficulties will be there. Especially from one's own mind. That is the greatest difficulty, is one's own mind. So we have to take care of our own mind also. We have to preach to our mind. We have to train our mind to be Krishna conscious, to be focused in Krishna, in Krishna's thoughts, in Krishna's activities. And then we can feel some transcendental pleasure when we are focused in Krishna Seva. So we have to practice constantly, and Krishna will help. And then we have to take help also from the spiritual master. We have to take help from the Vaishnavas, because alone it is difficult for the conditioned soul. Because especially in the age of Kali, material energy is there, the external energy is there, especially mode of passion and ignorance. So it is not conducive for spiritual understanding the age of Kali. But by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Kali Yuga avatar, and by the mercy of his associates, even though in the age of Kali the environment is not pure and one has not a long life, the intelligence is not very fixed or sharp, memory is not so good, but simply by chanting the holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Then one is connected to Krishna and one can advance more and more. And then as explained here, one can see oneself If one is properly chanting the holy name, one can see oneself as being different from this body. And then one can remain in that consciousness throughout the day, the more one is advanced. So we have to practice on a daily basis and always with enthusiasm. One has to be enthusiastic and fixed. And then one has to be patient also. And for one who has started this process of Krishna consciousness, then for that person, so success is guaranteed. But it will take some time, so we only have to be a little patient. And then success is guaranteed. So already when we are actually performing devotional service, one becomes fixed in knowledge, and one will understand this material world, one will understand the difficulties of this world, one will understand one's own difficulties. And then one can, despite all the difficulties, because one has knowledge, one can perform the path of, one can engage in devotional activities actually without too many anxieties. Because one will know that even though now many difficulties are there, I'm struggling, but still the future is bright. Because I'm on the path of Krishna consciousness and Krishna is there to help me. So therefore I don't have to worry too much. I try my best and Krishna does the rest. So Krishna is there to help us. And when we engage in Krishna consciousness, we can see. But we have to be a little patient. That is many times the challenge. For the devotees also, they become very quickly discouraged. Oh, I'm chanting since 20 years and still I'm not able to be always happy. The tears are not coming from my eyes like torrents of rains. Hairs are not standing on end while I chant the holy names. What is this? No, we have to be patient. And we have to be willing to undergo the difficulties throughout one's life. And therefore, even you can see in the lives of the great devotees, difficulties are there because it is the nature of this material world, always problems. But we have to remain fixed despite all difficulties. So it is a matter of, again, there of training our consciousness. We have to train our mind to be always very humble, to be tolerant, and one has to adjust according to time, place and circumstances. And we have to be always positive. Positive thinking. Even in the material world, people, they have understood. Intelligent people, they have understood. It is better to be positive than negative. What is the use of being negative? This problem, that problem, and getting destroyed. Better to be positive. Everything is fine ultimately. Everything is the mercy of the Lord. A devotee is positive. And so that is very helpful. That is actually required to be positive in our life, despite all difficulties. So even materialistic persons, they have understood that it is better to be positive than negative. Even though they may not be Krishna conscious, but they understood why to be negative, why to be unhappy. Let me just be happy despite all difficulties. Even materialistic persons, intelligent materialistic persons, they have understood that better to be positive than negative. So what to speak in Krishna consciousness? We should have the knowledge and then we should be positive. Everything is positive, everything is good, despite all difficulties which are always there in our life. But if we are positive and if we try our best, then we will be always actually enlivened, despite so many difficulties. And we'll have then the strength and the determination, the enthusiasm to be engaged in spiritual activities most of the time, despite all difficulties. And knowing that ultimately this material world is temporary. Dukhalayam ashashvatam. It is temporary and full of miseries. So then we have to understand and see that ultimately I am spirit soul. Why I should worry? I am Satchidananda Sarup. I am eternal. And by nature I am blissful and knowledgeable, conscious. unconscious of Krishna. So therefore it is mentioned we should chant with some bandagyan, or we should serve with some bandagyan. We should chant and serve with the knowledge, I am not this body, I am spirit soul. I have a relationship with Krishna. Let me just try my best to chant nicely. Let me try my best to serve Krishna nicely. So always in that positive state of mind we should be, and then we can advance nicely, and then we can be satisfied, we can be somewhat peaceful despite all the problems, and then we can advance slowly but surely. And then we can help others also when we are positive. And so because people, so they are struggling, but if they are seeing somebody is positive, somebody is happy, somebody is knowledgeable, somebody is advanced in spiritual life, then naturally they will want to be with that person, because they want to be also happy. They want to make advancement in spiritual life, and then we can help others also. So, so that is the situation of a devotee. Is properly situated on the spiritual platform, and is understanding that this material world is temporary, and it is to be given up, this material situation. Tamasima jyotirgamaya. So we should give up the darkness of this material world and we go to the light, that is Krishna consciousness. Krishna, Surya Sama, Maya Yandaka, Jahan Krishna Ta Maya Adikarnai. Krishna is like the sun, and this material world is darkness. So wherever there is Krishna, there is no question of darkness. So if we are trying to serve Krishna, try to see Krishna, and then the ignorance or the darkness will not touch us. And then if you are in that situation, in Krishna consciousness, then you can be happy. But if Krishna consciousness is not there, darkness is there, and then suffering is there. Asatma, sadgamaya. You give up what is asat, what is temporary, and you go to satgamaya. You go to the eternal life, to the spiritual life in Krishna consciousness. Mrityuma amritya gamaya. So the cycle of birth and death is there. Mrityu, death. So we want to give up the cycle of birth and death. And we go to Amrit, to the nectar. Amrit means nectar, or means also eternal. Amrit, that which is beyond this material world. The cycle of birth and death. And the platform of eternal life. That is Amrit. And that is nectar. Krishna consciousness means nectar. Krishna is the source of all transcendental pleasure, Paramanand. And in Krishna consciousness, by performing Sankirtan, Param Vijayate Si Krishna Sankirtanam. And then at every step we can feel this transcendental pleasure in Krishna consciousness. So we have to try our best to be in Krishna consciousness, and then we can feel this transcendental pleasure. And then we can see ourselves as different from this temporary, miserable material world. So Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada used to say, is easy for those who are simple. Simply you chant, you serve the Lord, and then you take Krishna consciousness. So very simple, no problem. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki, Satyanandana Gaura Hari ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Mahaprasadam ki. So everyone can come and take a little Mahaprasad.